The red warning lights flashed across the military transport as it moved through the darkness of space. Inside the cramped cargo hold, Commander Thane checked his weapons for the third time. His razor-sharp claws scraped against the metal table as he examined each piece of equipment. The bio-armor that covered his 7-foot frame hummed softly with power. Every part of his body was built for killing. Thane belonged to a race called the Ravaki. They were the most feared warriors in the entire galactic dominion. Their home planet was a world of endless battles where only the strongest survived. From birth, every Ravaki learned to hunt, to fight, and to kill without mercy. Their government chose the best fighters to become apex predator guards. These elite soldiers handled the most dangerous missions across the galaxy. Today's mission was different from his usual assignments. Instead of leading an attack on enemy ships or capturing rebel leaders, Thane was being sent to a prison. The target was a single prisoner from a species he had barely heard of before: humans. The name meant nothing to most people in the galaxy. They came from a small blue planet in a distant corner of space that nobody cared about. The transport ship shuddered as it began to slow down. Through the small window, Thane could see their destination. Prison Station Omega-9 floated in the empty space around a dead planet. The massive structure looked like a metal fortress with thousands of lights marking different sections. This was where the Dominion kept its most dangerous prisoners. Murderers, terrorists, rebel leaders, and war criminals from dozens of different worlds all lived behind its thick walls. A voice crackled through the communication system. "Commander Thane, this is Control. We are approaching the station. Your target is waiting in the maximum security wing. The prisoner has been there for 6 days without giving us any useful information." Thane pressed the reply button. "What exactly am I supposed to get from this human?" "Military secrets," came the answer. "The humans have been causing problems in the Outer Rim territories. They use strange fighting methods that our generals do not understand. We need to know how their military works, what weapons they have, and how many soldiers they can field. The prisoner is a captured human soldier named Alex. 3 interrogation. Specialists have already tried to break him. All of them failed." This information surprised Thane. In his experience, most prisoners broke after a few hours of proper questioning. The Ravaki had perfected the art of making people talk. They used fear, pain, and psychological pressure to extract information from even the toughest enemies. If 3 specialists had failed with this human, there must be something unusual about the creature. The transport docked with the prison station with a loud clang of metal against metal. Thane gathered his equipment and walked toward the airlock. His heavy boots echoed through the corridors as he made his way to the command center. Other guards moved quickly out of his path. Even among the tough prison staff, apex predator guards commanded respect and fear. The station commander was a nervous little alien named Brix. His species, the Quillen, were known for being good administrators but terrible fighters. Brix stood, barely 4 feet tall with gray skin and large black eyes that darted around nervously as Thane approached. "Commander, welcome to Omega-9, Brix said with a shaky voice. "I must warn you about this prisoner. He is not like the others we keep here." Thane looked down at the small alien with contempt. "Explain." "The human shows no fear," Brix continued. "We have tried everything: starvation, sleep deprivation, temperature. Extremes, neural pain inducers, nothing works. He just sits there and smiles. It is very disturbing." "Has he been violent?" "No, sir. He has never tried to attack anyone or escape. He just refuses to cooperate. The previous interrogators all requested transfers after working with him. One of them, a Karathi mind reader, claimed that trying to probe the human's thoughts gave him nightmares." Thane dismissed this information with a wave of his clawed hand. The Quillen were known for being easily frightened. A creature that scared them might not be impressive to a true predator. "Show me to the prisoner." They walked through multiple security checkpoints as they descended deeper into the station. Each level had stronger locks, more guards, and thicker walls. The air grew colder as they moved toward the maximum security wing. Finally, they stopped in front of a massive door marked with warning signs in 12 different languages. "This is it," Brick said. "Cell 7 Alpha. The human is inside." Through the observation window, Thane got his first look at the creature that had caused so much trouble. The human sat in a metal chair in the center of the cell. Energy restraints held, his arms and legs in place. The cell itself was a marvel of Dominion technology. Force fields, neural suppressors, and atmosphere controls created an environment that could break the will of almost any living being. The human looked smaller than Thane had expected. Most dangerous prisoners were large, muscular creatures with natural weapons like claws or fangs. This human was barely 6 feet tall with pale skin and brown hair. It had no visible weapons, no armor, and no obvious physical advantages. By every measure that mattered in the galaxy, it should have been helpless. Yet something about the human bothered Thane. The creature sat calmly in its restraints without showing any signs of distress. Its strange, forward-facing eyes stared straight. A head with a focus that reminded Thane of the hunting expression he saw in mirrors. The human's breathing was slow and steady despite having no food or water for days. "Open the cell," Thane commanded. "Sir, are you sure? Station regulations require at least 2 guards present during any interaction with this prisoner." Thane's bio-armor flared with threat displays. "I am an Apex Predator guard. I do not need help dealing with one small human." Bricks quickly activated. The door controls. The massive barrier slid open with a hiss of escaping air. Thane stepped into the cell and the door sealed behind him. His equipment detected that the cell's atmosphere was safe to breathe. Neural suppressors hummed in the walls around him. Everything was designed to make the prisoner feel weak and helpless. The human's head turned slowly to look at him. For a moment, their eyes met across the small cell. Thane waited for the fear response he had seen thousands of times before. The widening eyes, the increased breathing, the smell of terror that marked a creature that knew it was about to die. Instead, the human smiled. It was not the desperate smile of someone trying to seem brave. It was not the broken smile of someone who had given up hope. It was something else entirely. Something that made Thane's predatory instincts send warning signals through his nervous system. "Another one," the human said in a calm, steady voice. "Let me guess, they told you I was dangerous, so they sent their best killer to break me." The smell of recycled air and metal filled the interrogation cell as Thane studied his target. Everything about this moment should have been routine. He had broken hundreds of prisoners before. The process was always the same. Enter the cell. Establish dominance. Apply pressure until the prisoner's will cracked like thin ice. Most creatures begged for mercy within the first few minutes. This human was different. Alex sat in the restraint chair as if he owned it. His clothes were dirty and torn from days of imprisonment, but his posture showed no defeat. The neural suppressors that should have left him barely conscious seemed to have no effect at all. Most prisoners in this cell spent their time crying, screaming, or staring at nothing with broken minds. This human looked like he was waiting for something interesting to happen. Thane activated his bio-armor's intimidation systems. Bioluminescent patches along his arms and chest began to glow with threatening colors. His claws extended to their full length, each one sharp enough to cut through steel. The armor amplified his already impressive size, making him look like a mechanical demon. These displays had made enemy armies retreat in terror. The human watched the light show with what looked like mild interest. "I am Commander Thane of the Apex Predator Guard," he announced, letting his voice carry the full weight of his authority. "You will answer my questions about human military capabilities, or you will suffer beyond your species' capacity to endure." Most prisoners would have been begging by now. The smart ones started talking immediately. The stupid ones tried to act tough for a few minutes before breaking down completely. This human did something that no prisoner had ever done before in Thane's experience. He laughed. It was not the high-pitched laugh of hysteria or the bitter laugh of despair. It was the warm laugh of someone who had just heard a funny joke. The sound echoed off the metal walls of the cell and seemed to fill the space with an energy that made Thane uncomfortable. "You know what's funny?" Alex said, leaning back in his chair as much as the restraints would allow. "Every species we've met thinks they're the apex predator. The Zephyrians with their acid blood, the Karathi with their hive minds, the Nexari with their mind powers." His eyes never left Thane's face. "They all made the same mistake you're about to make." Thane felt his confidence waver for just a moment. The human's tone held no fear, no submission, no recognition of the dangerous situation he was in. If anything, the creature sounded almost amused by the whole situation. "And what mistake is that, pray?" Thane asked, putting as much menace into his voice as possible. "Thinking that being a predator makes you dangerous to humans." The words hit Thane like a physical blow. In all his years as a warrior, no prisoner had ever called him anything but sir or master, or simply screamed in terror. This human was treating him like an equal in a conversation, rather than a superior to be feared. Thane decided to escalate the situation. He activated the neural probe, a device attached to his armor that could cause incredible pain by directly stimulating the nervous system. The energy field surrounded the human's head with crackling electricity. Most creatures lost consciousness within seconds of exposure to this device. The human did not even flinch. "Interesting," Alex observed as if discussing the weather. Neural pain induction. We studied devices like this after capturing some from the Karathi. The theory is sound, but you're making a basic assumption about how human nervous systems work. Thane increased the power. The energy field grew brighter and more intense. He had seen hardened criminals beg for death rather than endure this level of neural stimulation. The human continued talking in the same calm, conversational tone. "On my world, we have a saying. It's not the size of the dog in the fight, it's the size of the fight in the dog. Want to know what we call creatures like you back home?" Despite himself, Thane found himself listening. The neural probe should have made conversation impossible. The human should have been writhing in agony. Big game. Something cold moved through Thane's chest at those words. The way the human said them carried implications that his predator brain recognized but could not quite process. It was the tone that a hunter used when discussing a particularly challenging prey animal. "Your species conquered 17 systems by being bigger, faster, and stronger than everyone else," Alex continued, apparently unaffected by the neural torture device. "Classic predator strategy. Overwhelming physical superiority backed up by advanced technology. It works great against most species." The human paused and looked directly into Thane's eyes. "But humans? We conquered our entire planet not by being the biggest or strongest, but by being the most persistent, most adaptable, and most ruthlessly creative species that ever lived." Thane found himself turning off the neural probe without conscious thought. The device had clearly malfunctioned. Nothing could ignore that level of pain. He would have to rely on other methods. "Those claws are impressive," Alex said, nodding toward Thane's extended weapons. "Razor sharp, built for tearing through armor and flesh, probably took millions of years of evolution to develop. My ancestors had creatures with claws like those, on our world too." The human's smile grew wider. "We hunted them to extinction using nothing but sharpened sticks and teamwork." "Impossible," Thane said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Cave bears, saber-toothed cats, dire wolves, all bigger than us, all stronger than us, all better armed than us, all extinct now. We didn't just defeat our predators, Commander, we turned them into pets. We took wolves, the most dangerous pack hunters on our planet, and convinced them to live in our houses and protect our children. Thane's threat displays flickered uncertainly. Every instinct he possessed told him that the human was lying, but his equipment detected no deception. The creature's heartbeat remained steady, his breathing calm, his body language relaxed. Your intelligence reports probably told you that humans use primitive kinetic weapons, Alex continued. Bullets instead of energy beams, explosives instead of plasma charges. What they didn't tell you is why. The human leaned forward as much as his restraints allowed. It's not because we can't make energy weapons. We had those centuries ago. We use kinetic weapons because of the psychological impact. Nothing says, we don't need advanced technology to kill you, quite like putting a chunk of metal through someone's skull at 3 times the speed of sound. For the first time in his career as an apex predator guard, Thane felt something he had never experienced before. The emotion was so foreign to his nature that he almost did not recognize it. Uncertainty. The human was doing something that should have been impossible. Without weapons, without freedom of movement, without any apparent advantages, the creature was making a trained killer feel nervous. The roles in this interrogation were somehow reversing, and Thane could not understand how it was happening. The temperature in the cell seemed to drop as Alex continued speaking. His voice carried a strange quality that made Thane listen, despite every instinct telling him to reassert control over the situation. The human had somehow turned an interrogation into a lecture. And the most disturbing part was that Thane wanted to hear more. "Let me tell you about persistence hunting," Alex said, settling more comfortably in his restraints. The energy bonds that should have been causing him pain might, as well, have been soft cushions. It's how my ancestors survived long before we developed tools or fire or agriculture. Thane's bio-armor registered his elevated stress levels, but he could not understand why a chained prisoner was making him feel this way. Everything in his training told him to hurt the human until it submitted. Everything in his instincts told him that something was very wrong with this situation. The way it worked was simple, Alex continued. A human hunter would pick out an animal, maybe a deer, an antelope, something fast and graceful, something that could outrun a human easily in a sprint. Then the hunter would just start following it. The human's eyes never left Thane's face as he spoke. Not fast enough to catch it immediately, just fast enough that the animal couldn't rest. The prey would run until it got tired, then stop to catch its breath, but the human would keep walking, always walking, never stopping. Something about the story made Thane's claws retract involuntarily. He had heard of similar hunting methods on other worlds, but something in the way the human described it felt different, more personal. The animal would rest for a few minutes, then notice the human was getting closer, Alex continued. So it would run again. Faster this time, farther this time. But the human would just keep walking, hour after hour, sometimes for days. Thane found himself imagining the scenario. A small, weak creature slowly pursuing something much faster and stronger. It should have been impossible. The prey had every advantage. Eventually, the animal would start to understand what was happening. The human said softly, "This strange, slower creature wasn't trying to catch it quickly. It was trying to outlast it. The prey would realize that no matter how fast it ran, no matter where it hid, the human would just keep coming. Always coming. Never stopping. Never giving up." The words hit Thane like a series of physical blows as their implications became clear. The animal would run itself to death trying to escape something it could have easily killed in a direct fight. "Exactly," Alex said with that unsettling smile. "Persistence hunting, the most terrifying form of predation ever developed, not because of strength or speed or weapons, but because of the absolute certainty that the hunter will never, ever stop." Thane's bioarmor systems were flashing warning signals now. His heart rate had increased, his breathing had changed, and stress hormones flooded his system. The human was somehow triggering a fear response in a creature that had been engineered not to feel fear. How long have you been chasing humans through the Outer Rim territories, Commander? Alex asked suddenly. The question struck like lightning. Thane realized that the 3-month military campaign, which Dominion Command had expected to last mere weeks, had become something else entirely. Human forces never engaged in direct combat where they could be destroyed quickly. Instead, they appeared where least expected, struck at supply convoys and communication stations, then vanished into asteroid fields and nebulae only to resurface somewhere else days later. "We've been running you in circles, haven't we?" Alex observed, reading Thane's expression with disturbing accuracy. "Your forces are tired, stretched thin across dozens of systems, constantly reacting to our movements instead of dictating them. Your commanders keep promising that the next big battle will end the war, but there's never a next big battle." Thane's mind raced as he processed the tactical implications. If the humans were deliberately drawing out the conflict, if this was all part of a larger strategy rather than desperate survival, then everything the Dominion believed about human capabilities was wrong. "Classic persistence hunting," Alex said with satisfaction. "We're not trying to defeat you in a single glorious battle. We're wearing you down, system by system, supply line by supply line, until your forces make the kind of mistakes that tired, frustrated predators always make." The human leaned back in his chair and continued speaking in that maddeningly calm voice. "Your species is used to quick victories. Overwhelming force, superior technology, fear-based submission from conquered populations. When that doesn't work, when the prey refuses to submit or run away, you don't know what to do." Thane wanted to argue, to reassert his dominance, to prove that the Ravaki were still the superior species. But the evidence was becoming impossible to ignore. The human military campaign had indeed followed the pattern Alex described. Every time Dominion forces moved to crush a human position, they found empty bases and evacuated colonies. Every time they tried to consolidate their gains, supply lines came under attack from unexpected directions. "You're beginning to understand," Alex said, noting Thane's expression. "You came here expecting to interrogate a primitive prey animal. But I'm not prey, Commander. None of us are." The human's voice took on a harder edge. "We're the species that perfected persistence hunting before we invented agriculture. We're the species that survived ice ages by outlasting creatures bigger and stronger than us. We're the species that looked at every environmental challenge and decided to adapt rather than flee." Thane found himself taking a step backward without meaning to. The movement was subtle, but in the confined space of the cell, it felt like a retreat. For the first time in his adult life, a Ravaki warrior was backing down from a confrontation. "We turned persistence hunting into an art form," Alex continued relentlessly. "Then we turned cooperation into a science. Then we turned warfare into a psychological weapon. Your Dominion thinks they're fighting a primitive species with crude technology." The human's smile became predatory. "They're fighting the species that invented the concept of total war. The species that figured out how to make entire civilizations surrender without firing a shot. The species that learned how to turn other predators into hunting partners." Thane's world was crumbling around him as everything he had believed about galactic politics and military superiority revealed itself as dangerous illusion. The humans were not desperately defending themselves against superior enemies. They were methodically dismantling those enemies using strategies that most species could not even comprehend. "More importantly," Alex said, his voice dropping to almost a whisper, "we're the species that learned how to make allies out of enemies." The silence in the cell stretched between them like a living thing. Thane stood frozen as his entire understanding of the Galactic War reshaped itself around this new information. Every report from the Outer Rim territories suddenly made sense, in a completely different and terrifying way. The humans were not losing a desperate defensive war. They were winning a carefully planned campaign of attrition. Alex watched the realization dawn on the Ravaki warrior's face with quiet satisfaction. You're processing the tactical implications, he observed. Good. That means your species is smart enough to recognize a superior strategy when you see one. Impossible, Thane said, but his voice lacked any conviction. The Dominion has superior numbers, better technology, more advanced weapons systems. All true, Alex agreed cheerfully, and completely irrelevant. You know what humans call what? You just described? Target-rich environment? The human shifted in his restraints, somehow making the motion look casual rather than constrained. Let me tell you about the Zephyrian Empire. Magnificent species, crystal-based life forms with natural energy weapons and the ability to survive in hard vacuum. They conquered 47 systems before they encountered humans. Thane had heard of the Zephyrians. They had been one of the Dominion's major rivals until their sudden disappearance from galactic politics 15 years ago. Official reports claimed they had withdrawn to their home systems for unknown reasons. The Zephyrians made the same mistake you're making now, Alex continued. They assumed that superior individual capabilities meant superior civilization. When they invaded human space, they expected quick victories against a technologically inferior enemy. The human's smile grew darker. The war lasted 8 years. Not because the Zephyrians were particularly tough to beat, but because we wanted to study their technology, their social structure, their military organization. We spent the first 3 years of the war learning everything we could about them, while giving ground strategically. What happened to them? Thane found himself asking, though part of him already knew he did not want to hear the answer. They exist, Alex said simply. Happy, productive members of human space. Their children learn human languages in school. Their scientists work in our research facilities. Their artists create beautiful works that combine human and Zephyrian cultural elements. They're probably more prosperous now than they ever were as an independent empire. The implications were staggering. The Dominion's intelligence services had assumed the Zephyrians had been destroyed or had simply retreated from galactic affairs. The possibility that they had been peacefully absorbed into human civilization had never occurred to anyone. Integration, rather than conquest, Alex explained, reading Thane's expression. We learned early in our history that destroyed enemies create more problems than cooperative former enemies. It's much more efficient to convince people that working with you benefits them more than fighting against you. Thane's bio-armor registered his elevated stress levels as dangerous. Warning lights flashed across his visual display, but he ignored them. The Karathi Collective, the Nexari Confederacy, all the powers that have gone silent in the last 20 years, all thriving under human administration, Alex confirmed. Their best and brightest working alongside human researchers to solve problems that neither species could handle alone. Their military forces integrated into human defense networks. Their cultures preserved and celebrated rather than destroyed. Human leaned forward as much as his restraints allowed. That's what humans do, Commander. We don't just defeat our enemies. We turn them into friends. We take their strengths and combine them with our own strengths to create something better than either could achieve alone. Thane felt something crack inside his chest. Everything the Dominion had taught him about the natural order of the galaxy was proving to be wrong. The strong did not automatically rule the weak. Sometimes the weak found ways to make the strong want to serve them voluntarily. Your Dominion rules through fear, Alex continued relentlessly. Serve us or be destroyed. Submit or face overwhelming force. It works in the short term, but it creates enemies everywhere you go. Every conquered system dreams of rebellion. Every subject species looks for the first opportunity to throw off your control. The human's voice took on an almost hypnotic quality. Humans rule through something much more powerful than fear. We rule through hope. Join us and become stronger than you ever imagined. Work with us and solve problems you never thought possible. Fight alongside us and help us build something better than anyone has ever built before. You're trying to recruit me, Thane realized suddenly. I'm offering you a choice, Alex corrected. you can continue serving a dominion that sees you as nothing more than a weapon to be pointed at enemies and discarded when you're no longer useful. Or you can join a civilization that will value your skills, your experience, and your unique perspective. Thane's claws extended and retracted involuntarily as he processed this offer. What makes you think I would betray my own species? Because you're smart enough to recognize which side is winning this war, Alex replied matter-of-factly. Because you've spent the last few minutes listening to me explain exactly how humans are systematically dismantling everything your dominion has built. And because deep down, you know that your government sent you here not to extract information, but to die. The last statement hit Thane like a physical blow. Explain. Think about it, Alex said patiently. 3 interrogation specialists failed to get information from me. Standard procedure would be to try different methods, bring in specialists from other species, maybe use technological approaches. Instead, they sent an apex predator guard for what they claim is a simple interrogation mission. Thane's mind raced as he considered the political implications. Apex predator guards were expensive to train and maintain. They were not typically used for interrogation work unless the situation was desperate. Your commanders know this war is not going as planned, Alex continued. They need someone to blame for the failures in the Outer Rim territories. What better scapegoat than an elite warrior who got himself killed trying to extract information from a dangerous human prisoner? The pieces fell into place with horrifying clarity. If Thane died in this cell, his commanders could claim that human prisoners were too dangerous for normal interrogation methods. They could use his death to justify more extreme measures, more resources, more time to achieve victory that was becoming increasingly unlikely. They sent you here to die, Commander, Alex said softly. The question is whether you're going to give them what they want or whether you're ready to choose a different path. Thane stared at the human for long moments, his entire world reorganizing itself around this new understanding. Everything he had believed about loyalty, duty, and the natural order of the galaxy was crumbling. In its place, something new and strange was beginning to form, a possibility he had never imagined before. The possibility that there might be a better way to live than as a weapon in someone else's war. The air in the cell felt thick with possibility as Thane stood motionless, processing everything the human had told him. His bio-armor systems continued flashing warnings about his elevated stress levels, but for the first time in his life, he ignored the displays completely. Something more important than physical readiness was happening in his mind. Alex watched the internal struggle play out across the Ravaki warrior's face with patient understanding. He had seen this moment before, with other species, other soldiers who had suddenly realized that everything they believed about the war was wrong. The transition from enemy to ally was never easy, but it was always worth the effort. I can see your thinking, Alex said gently. That's good. Most people in your position either attack me or run away by now. The fact that you're still here, still listening, tells me that you're smarter than your commanders gave you credit for. Thane's voice was barely a whisper when he finally spoke. If what you're saying is true, then I've been nothing more than a tool my entire life. Everything I've done, every enemy I've killed, every world I've helped conquer, it was all just to maintain a system that was doomed to fail anyway. Not doomed to fail, Alex corrected. Designed to fail. The Dominion's entire structure depends on constant expansion and conquest. When you run out of enemies to fight, the system collapses from within. Your leaders know this, which is why they keep starting new wars, even when the old ones aren't finished yet. The human shifted in his restraints again, somehow making the motion look natural despite the energy bonds. Humans learned this lesson the hard way on our own world. We spent thousands of years fighting each other in endless cycles of conquest and revenge. Empire after empire rose and fell because they were built on the idea that strength equals right. What changed? Thane asked, surprising himself with how much he wanted to know the answer. We figured out that cooperation is more powerful than conquest, Alex said simply. When humans finally learned to work together instead of fighting each other, we accomplished more in a few centuries than we had in all our previous history combined. We went from primitive tribes to spacefaring civilization in less time than most species take to develop basic agriculture. The human's eyes grew distant as he spoke about his people's history. It wasn't easy. We had to learn to see former enemies as potential allies. We had to figure out how to resolve conflicts without destroying each other. We had to accept that different ways of thinking and living could all be valuable. But it worked, Thane said. It was not a question. The evidence was everywhere around him, from the failed Dominion campaigns to the disappearance of entire enemy civilizations. It worked so well that we decided to share the concept with the rest of the galaxy, Alex confirmed. Every species we encounter gets the same choice you're getting right now. Join us and help us build something better, or keep fighting until you exhaust yourselves and surrender anyway. Thane found himself taking a step closer to the human. What would happen to me if I chose to join you? My people would consider me a traitor. I could never go home again. Home is where people value you for who you are, not just what you can do for them, Alex replied. Your current home sees you as a weapon. In human space, you could be a teacher, a researcher, a diplomat, an explorer, or yes, a soldier if that's what you choose, but it would be your choice. The concept was so foreign to Ravaki culture that Thane struggled to understand it. In his society, individuals were assigned roles based on their physical capabilities and psychological profiles. The idea that someone could choose their own path in life seemed almost magical. What would I have to do? He asked. Help us understand Dominion military structure and strategy, Alex said immediately, not for the purpose of destroying your people, but to figure out how to defeat them with minimal casualties on both sides. Help us develop ways to integrate Ravaki warriors into human society. Help us learn what your people need to be happy and productive as part of something larger than conquest. Thane realized that his claws had retracted completely without him noticing. His bio-armor's threat displays had gone dark. For the first time since entering the cell, he was not presenting himself as a dangerous predator. The choice has to be yours, Alex continued. I won't try to force you or manipulate you into anything, but I will tell you this. Every person who has chosen to work with humans instead of against them has found their life became better in ways they never expected. The cell fell silent, except for the quiet hum of the containment systems. Thane stood frozen as he weighed possibilities he had never imagined against the certainty of a life he was beginning to understand had always been hollow. Finally, slowly, he reached for the restraint controls. "What are you doing?" came Brix's panicked voice over the communication system. The Quillen warden had been monitoring the interrogation from the security center. Thane's finger hovered over the release mechanism as he made the most important decision of his life. "What I should have done the moment I realized what we're actually fighting," he said, and pressed the button. The energy restraints deactivated with a soft chime. Alex rubbed his wrists where the bonds had held him for 6 days, but showed no other signs of relief or weakness. He stood up from the chair with fluid grace and extended his hand toward Thane in what the Ravaki recognized as a human gesture of friendship. "Welcome to the human resistance, Commander," Alex said with that persistent smile that had started this entire conversation. "Now, let's talk about how an apex predator guard can help us teach the Dominion what it really means to be prey." Thane stared at the offered hand for a moment before reaching out with his own clawed appendage. The contact was brief, but meaningful. For the first time in his life, he was shaking hands with someone who saw him as an equal rather than a superior or subordinate. Alarms began blaring throughout the prison station as security systems registered the unauthorized release of a maximum security prisoner. Red lights flashed in the corridors outside the cell as automated defenses activated. Emergency protocols that had been designed to contain the most dangerous criminals in the galaxy were now focused on stopping two individuals who had no intention of fighting their way out. "They'll seal the entire station," Thane said, his tactical training automatically analyzing their situation. "Blast doors, force fields, automated weapons systems. Even with my clearance codes, we won't be able to reach the docking bays." Alex looked completely unconcerned by this information. "Who says we need to reach the docking bays?" Before Thane could ask what he meant, the human walked to the communication panel and activated the station-wide announcement system. His voice echoed through every corridor, cell block, and command center in the massive facility. "Attention, all prisoners and staff of Detention Facility Omega-9. Alex said in the same calm tone he had used throughout their conversation. "My name is Alex Chen of the Human Defense Corps. I am officially extending an offer of asylum and citizenship to any being currently held in this facility who wishes to join the fight for galactic freedom." Thane's bio-armor registered his shock at this bold move. "What are you doing? You'll start a riot." "I'm recruiting," Alex replied matter-of-factly. "This station holds some of the most dangerous individuals in the galaxy: rebels, resistance, fighters, political prisoners, and military leaders from dozens of species who have been captured fighting against Dominion expansion. They're exactly the kind of people we need." The human continued his announcement as chaos erupted throughout the station. "To the guards and staff who are listening, you have the same choice I just offered Commander Thane. Join us willingly and help us build a better galaxy, or continue serving a system that sees you as expendable." Through the observation windows, Thane could see other prisoners in nearby cells reacting to the announcement. Some were shouting in languages he did not recognize. Others were testing their restraints with renewed energy. The entire Maximum security wing was coming alive with activity. "The automated systems will release everyone if they detect a total facility breach," Thane realized. "It's a last resort protocol designed to create chaos that might allow high-value prisoners to escape rather than be rescued by enemy forces." Alex smiled, that same unsettling smile. "I know. I spent the last 6 days studying this facility's security protocols while your interrogators were trying to break me. Amazing what you can learn by listening carefully to guard conversations and watching maintenance routines." The implications hit Thane like a physical blow. "You've been planning this escape since the moment you were captured." "Not escape," Alex corrected. "Recruitment. There's a difference." More alarms joined the cacophony as security doors began cycling open throughout the station. The automated systems had indeed detected what they interpreted as a total facility breach and were implementing emergency protocols. Hundreds of the galaxy's most dangerous prisoners were being released simultaneously. "This is madness," Thane said, but his voice held admiration rather than criticism. "You're turning the entire station into a recruitment center." "Welcome to human military strategy," Alex replied cheerfully. "We don't just plan for victory. We plan to turn every defeat into an opportunity and every enemy facility into a potential asset." Through the communication system, they could hear Brix's panicked voice trying to coordinate a response to the unprecedented situation. "All security teams to defensive positions. Seal the command center. Send distress signals to the nearest Dominion fleet." Alex reached over and switched the communication channel to override Brix's transmissions. "Warden Brix, this is Alex Chen. I'm offering you and your staff safe passage off the station along with full pardons and the opportunity to start new lives in human space. You have 5 minutes to consider the offer before things get complicated." The human turned to Thane with a questioning look. "What's the normal response time for Dominion reinforcements to reach this station?" 18 hours minimum, Thane replied automatically. "The nearest major fleet is 3 systems away." "Perfect. That gives us plenty of time to sort out who wants to join us and who wants to take their chances with the rescue ships." As if summoned by his words, the cell door opened to reveal a group of newly freed prisoners. Thane recognized several species. A towering Karathi warrior with 4 arms and natural armor plating, a sleek Nexari whose skin shifted colors with emotion, and a small group of what looked like human soldiers still wearing the remnants of military uniforms. "Alex," one of the humans called out, "are you the one who triggered the mass release?" "Guilty as charged, Lieutenant Williams," Alex replied with a grin. "I hope you don't mind that I started the party without you." The Karathi warrior stepped forward, its massive frame filling the doorway. "Human Alex Chen. I am Gorth of the Karathi Resistance. If your offer of alliance is genuine, then my warriors and I pledge our service to your cause." Similar declarations came from representatives of other species throughout the facility. Over the station's communication system, they could hear dozens of different languages as prisoners declared their willingness to join the human cause rather than wait for uncertain, rescue or continue indefinite imprisonment. "And that," Alex said to Thane with obvious satisfaction, "is how humans turn a single prisoner extraction into a major recruitment operation. We don't just escape from our enemies, we convince our enemies' prisoners to escape with us." Thane looked around at the growing crowd of beings who had chosen freedom with humans over continued imprisonment by the Dominion. Warriors, scientists, political leaders, and rebels from across the galaxy were voluntarily placing themselves under human command. "You planned all of this," he said with growing awe. "From the moment you were captured, you knew this would happen." "I hoped it would happen," Alex corrected. "But I needed someone like you to make it work. Someone with the authority to release prisoners and the credibility to convince others that the offer was genuine." The human extended his hand again, this time in a gesture that Thane understood was far more significant than simple friendship. "So what do you say, Commander? Ready to help us show the galaxy what humans can really do when we put our minds to it?" Thane looked at the offered hand, then at the crowd of former prisoners who had chosen hope over despair, cooperation over conquest. For the first time in his life, he was being offered the chance to be part of something larger than warfare. He reached out and grasped Alex's hand firmly. "Ready," he said, and meant it completely. The age of human dominance was indeed about to begin, and it would be built not on conquest, but on the simple revolutionary idea that former enemies could become the strongest allies of all.